Welcome to the program. Hello. I'm your boyfriend, George Stroumboulopoulos. I'm very excited to be with you tonight, and I hope you stay with it because we have Louise Archambault on the program, made a fantastic movie, and she's going to be here tonight. Listen, if you don't recognize the name, that's all right. If you are unsure about watching an interview with somebody maybe you don't know about, she has told a story from a perspective that you don't get to see too often, and it's beautiful, it's heartwarming. It's basically the story of the voice you don't get to hear too much, the other, so we'll get into that. I hope you are staying warm out there. I know it's getting a bit milder in the west. It's still pretty cold in places. We're seeing the back end of the polar vortex leaving, which for many of us means, oh great, it's only minus 15. It's not as bad in Banff, if you can imagine. I'll see you in Banff tomorrow night. I'm heading out there tomorrow night for official Olympic business, because a lot of people don't know this. Martin St. Louis didn't make the team because I did. It's going to be... Suddenly the odds that the Germans are going to win went straight up. I'll see you soon in Banff. If I can actually get out, I know a bunch of you are watching us right now in airports because the delays, certainly in Toronto, it's been hell at Pearson International Airport. Take a look at this. That cop right there saying, seriously, for 50 bucks, I will sneak you in. Cop is not saying that. It is rough. Hundreds and more flights were canceled today. We've got your back, Canada. Here's the thing. If you're stuck at the airport and you're watching this right now, you've got to find joy wherever you can. We've got something for you called George Stroumboulopoulos Tonight and Friends Airport Drinking Game. So just pop into your duty-free, get your favorite flavor, and every time you see a really tanned woman reading Us magazine, one drink. One tan woman, if she has braids, it's 2 shots. By the way, People magazine also counts. Every time you see somebody's grandmother struggling with the automated ticketing system, 2 drinks. If you see a couple whose relationship might not survive the security check, that's a drink. Unless you are in that couple, then it's the whole bottle. Somebody insisting that this is carry-on, everybody chugs but them. If you see racial profiling, all non-Caucasians chug. This guaranteed will get you drunk. If you see any example of terrible parenting, well, then I guess the kid chugs. That's the only way. By the way, if you are a pilot, you don't get to chug. If you are a flight attendant, drink up. Shall we deal with the day? All right, off the top, couple of birthdays to celebrate. Elvis Presley would have been 79 today. So, well, who are we kidding? He is 79. He's just a retired private detective living in Portland, Oregon right now. He just uses the assumed name Remington Magnum. Also, happy birthday, and I have to whisper this, to David Bowie. Bowie is 67, one of the greatest of all time. The reason I have to whisper Bowie is because if you actually say David Bowie out loud, Jian Ghomeshi gets a little shiver. So I'm trying to protect him. Also, by the way, it is the birthday of the ANC. It was on this day in 1912, the African National Congress was founded, a political party inextricably linked to the late, great Nelson Mandela. Much of the world is still in a state of mourning and remembering the great man. Here's what the great musician and activist Angelique Kidjo said about it on our show.
I didn't want to go to the funeral ceremony, none of that, because I know he's a very humble and very private person. But I went back 1 week after the funeral to do the show that I was supposed to do. And it was the first celebration concert after his funeral. And with Hugh Masekela, Gringo Martlingosi, a lot of South African artists. It was sad, but a lot of joy. And it's Mandela. That's all.
One of the greats. Now, Mandela, by the way, the first living person at the time to be made an honorary citizen of Canada, an honor bestowed in 2001 by unanimous consent in the House. I think it was unanimous. Does my memory fail me? Was it unanimous?
Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House to propose this motion? There is no consent.
No. Who would have had the nerve? Who would have had the cheek or the sass to deny Madiba? What's this guy right here? Look at this. The Conservative member for Calgary West, Rob Anders. Now, why is Mr. Anders back in the news? Well, the small C Conservatives in the old Reformers riding of Calgary West are trying to organize I guess, center-right, to nominate a different Conservative Party candidate next time around, which is a bit of a coup since he's been quite popular there since back in our Lord of 1997. Now, what does Rob think of these blue centrists exercising their right to organize within their party? Here he is last night on CBC Radio's As It Happens.
Red Tories or Clarkies are a small minority of the party, and the idea that they're going to rely upon Liberals and fellow travelers to go ahead and try to win a nomination and to hijack it, they've done this before, they're going to try it again, is frankly wrong.
Clarkies, what he's saying is, oh, they're the old school Joe Clark kind of conservatives. Carol, by the way, did an excellent job of not letting him off the hook. Remember the intellectual jousting she had with Conrad Blackwell last month? Well, listen to Rob trying to get off the phone with her last night after a few tough questions.
Now, at this stage, I have 20 minutes to get the Sun News, and my date with them is more important than my date with you. So thank you very much for your time.
Just one last question. Did he not unite the right? Did he not bring the Clarkies into the tent with him? Are they not all there with you?
I just am opposed to the idea when red Tories rely upon Liberals for their support. Once again, I have to get the Sun News. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mr. Anders.
To be clear, the Sun News he was referring to was a tanning salon in Calgary Southwest. That's where the reformers meet after hours to do their secret planning. So, listen, when red Tories and these Tories and Liberals relying on Liberals, you know what we actually see? That's how you look at us. You look at us like Liberals and Tories and Reds and Capital. We look at us like people, like citizens who are more complex than you give us credit for being, by the way. Finally, the Conservative, well, listen. There's a fun fact. You know who else challenged Anders for his nomination? Current Alberta Premier Alison Redford. But look, with the Liberals, I don't know that they're surging. People say they're surging back, but they're getting up there in the polls. And Stephen Harper and his office still under ethics allegations, and they're not shaking them. Red Tories and blue Liberals, they see blood in the water. And when that happens, they start talking again. It's an interesting time to be a Conservative in Canada because for the longest time, everybody just shut up and did what the Prime Minister said. Now it's changing. Speaking of blood in the water, these guys are going to be in the news a lot more in 2014. That is the ominous Asian carp. It's called the Asian carp. It's probably the biggest threat that the Great Lakes water system has ever faced. I bring this up because the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have just released a report detailing what they think it will take to keep those flying monsters from effectively destroying the Great Lakes and ultimately jumping into your toilet bowls and scarring you for the rest of life. See, here's what happens. Sometimes we introduce foreign species into an ecosystem. Usually we introduce them into the ecosystem because we screwed up the ecosystem in the first place and we're trying to fix it by doing something completely against nature. And then when we do that, they totally take over, like all the kangaroos and wallabies that we brought over in the 90s to keep our lawns short. Now suddenly they're everywhere mugging you on the subways. It's a huge problem in Toronto. It's one of those things that we don't really want to talk about here in the 416, but the thing that really, really triggers people's hate towards Toronto, the wallabies. But there are wallabies. Back to the Asian carp. It's going to be an increasingly interesting story. Back to the report I was talking about, they say about billions of dollars in 25 years to contain the flying monsters. They were introduced to the southern U.S. back in the 70s. The idea was to eat weeds and parasites in the fish farms, and guess what? They got out. Has nobody seen the documentary Piranha? They always get out. They get out, they get bigger, they breed, they're voracious, they outcompete native fish for food, and then they end up at your doorstep or worse, in your toilet bowl, and then what happens? Then what happens? There's one bit of good news, though. The Asian carp is in the Mississippi River system. And the other rivers in the Rust Belt, which due to economic decline, has a lot of food deserts. So enterprising business people thought, wait a minute, we have access to all this free, high-quality protein, and we get to kill? We'll sign up the tourists. Tell me at least a party who doesn't want to do that for your weekend. That's your debrief.